Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, October the 13th, 2025, and today we are going to discuss why there are no Nobels or any other big prize for farmers, what to do about persistent mold on alliums, and some insight gleaned from the Kentucky Composting Conference about commercial composting startups. So let's do it. All right, so happy Monday to you all. I hope everyone had nice weekends. I officially crossed over into my 30 teens, so that was fun. I had a really great birthday weekend of just hanging out with the family and doing soccer coaching thing. Pretty much like I do every weekend. Got one more weekend of that, soccer coaching, not my birthday. I only get one of those. And then I will probably have other things to report on for my weekends. We'll see. The weather has turned lovely for the moment here in Kentucky, so I'm definitely thankful for that. It's got that nice crisp fall thing going on. Going to get our last bed of sweet potatoes out this week, get the last of our winter cover crops sown, and then I can start puttering about like one dozen their 30 teens. I actually need to kind of get the farm ready for next year, but I'll probably find some time for puttering. I usually do. Anyway, and I'm not sure if I can make an entire segment out of this idea, but I notice it every October that farmers just don't win stuff. Not big stuff, at least. Sure, there are Farmer of the Year awards from various organizations, Best Pig Prize, that sort of stuff, but there is no Nobel Prize for farming. Literature, peace, chemistry, all those things, none for farming. The MacArthur Fellowship has only awarded a handful of farmers with the prestigious prize over the last 30 or so years. Will Allen in 2008, Wes Jackson in 1992, Cheryl Rogowski in 2002. Now, sure, you could say, well, plumbers aren't winning awards either, and that's fair, but it does show a certain favoritism in society that we tend to focus on those who have ideas over those who actually do the work. There is the World Food Prize, which is sometimes called the Nobel Prize of Food and Agriculture, which often, or at least mostly, goes to scientists and leaders of organizations. Now, to be sure, the person who won the prize this year is a Brazilian woman who has been working on helping farmers replace chemical fertilizers with microbial ones, and that's awesome, totally deserved, and I don't want to take anything away from that, but there are thousands of farmers all over the world doing that on their own properties in really clever and creative ways who could probably use an extra $500,000. That's the award of the World Food Prize, or $800,000. That's the award for the MacArthur Fellowship, or $1 million-ish. That's the current reward for a Nobel Prize, to just do more of it. Or to just take a vacation, or both, really, for $1 million. I think of like what Daniel Mays is doing up there at Frith Farm in Maine, with native hedges and abundant produce. I think of what Chris Newman is doing, building out in Virginia, scaling, good farming practices to get healthy food to people at a reasonable cost. What Jenny Love has done with no-till flowers right in the heart of Philly, what the Nordells have done with horses on Beech Grove Farm in Pennsylvania, and so many more. There is a near endless stream of creativity and passion and innovation going on all across the agricultural space that gets little to no recognition, prestige, financial reward. I mean, we don't even get grants anymore. Part of the challenge, I think, is that people who start these organizations, who give these massive checks to these innovators, want to award similar people to themselves. And because farmers are rarely coming away from their life's work with hundreds of millions of dollars to pour into a trust to reward other growers, there are very few ultra wealthy people directly advocating for farmers. Another problem is that this society is just not super concerned with celebrating the people who prop it up. Not the plumbers, not the electricians, the custodians, the nurses, the teachers, the farmers. Now, here's where I insert my solution, but I don't really have one. If no-till growers could start an award/fellowship thing, we would have already, but we would just need, millions of dollars, a staff, that sort of stuff. Mostly the millions, though. Of course, you could just say, well, it's just an award and it doesn't mean anything. Sure, that's worth consideration, but many of the best innovations come from people pushing just a little bit harder with the thought of a potential prize and some sort of prestige on the horizon. As innovative as farming is right now, it's also just really difficult work. That incentive of a potential prize, of potential prestige, I think would help not only with farmer innovation, but incentivizing the best, most creative, most inventive farmers to share more of their work publicly so they get seen, but also so others can learn from it and replicate it and build on it. Like I said, I don't know that I can make a whole segment out of this, although I kind of have at this point, or if it's even a good idea, but would some of the more brilliant minds out there in our society enter farming if there was a shot at a prize the level of the Nobel or the MacArthur Fellowship or something like that? Would they stay in it longer, push the, ecological boundaries a little bit more? Also, there may be you can let me know. There may be way more prizes than I'm aware of, in this regard. It's the ones that people are aware of that I think should make some space for the on-the-ground doers and innovators of our natural world, especially those of the ecological sort. The MacArthur Fellowship, for instance, has a stated mission of creating a, quote, just, verdant, and peaceful world, end quote. Y'all, verdant is how ecological farmers roll. That's literally the job. The Nobel Prize organization's mission states that it rewards, quote, those who, during the preceding year, shall have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind, end quote. And I don't know about you, but I feel like feeding people in a way that actually, improves the environment is a pretty great benefit to humankind. Anyway, I guess I'm just trying to stick up for all the great growers doing amazing work out there and making sure that they are recognized. You all deserve more recognition. What say you, commenters, listeners, watchers? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Anyway, we're going to get off this high horse and talk a little garlic mold and what to do about it now that we're at grow time. All right, BRB.
Hey, Farmer Jesse. This is Lisa out at Thornberry Farm in coastal Oregon, 9A. Recently changed from 8B, so we'll see. Today's project, just cleaning up, and I've got some bulbs to dig out and see what I can salvage from the dahlias.
Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. Renewal season is here, and the work you put in now is what brings members back next year. Ari Memar, founder of Farmhand and a guest you've heard on this podcast, has worked with regenerative farmers to create a playbook that turns renewal season into a growth season. One farmer, Melanie at Shake Fork Community Farm, brought in $40,000 in renewals in just 2 weeks using this strategy. Now, Ari and Melanie are sharing the exact approach in a free live workshop and downloadable playbook. Watch on demand and get the playbook at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Jesse Hammond, who writes, quote, hey Jesse, I have an issue with white mold on my alliums. This problem has been getting worse over the years. I started with losing about 5% of my garlic to the bulbs molding while in the ground to losing about 20% of my bulbs in recent years. It also affects my onions and shallots, but nothing else. I've tried switching beds, but my problem still persists. However, my garden is quite small, so everything is pretty close. Garlic planting time is just around the corner in Zone 7B here in far northwest Washington state, and I'm wondering what I can do to prevent or at least impede the mold on the garlic that I'm planting in October. I am also curious if the mold somehow has infected the cloves I am planting. I don't use cloves that are obviously infected as seed garlic. Only the healthiest bulbs make the cut. Thank you for your wonderful show and valuable advice, end quote. Okay, thanks, Jesse. Good question here and a poignant question. So the first thing I will say is that it won't hurt to get that mold identified. That will determine a lot about how to proceed because some fungal pathogens will simply persist longer in the soil than others. So it is perhaps worth taking a sample to your local extension agent to have them identify it because, to be honest with you, there are so many different molds it could be in your region, from Fusarium to penicillin and so on, that it would be hard to identify from here what exactly it is and what to do about it. With that out of the way, I'd be curious to know if the garlic was doing well before or if the garlic loss occurred in the first year of growing it, because it is possible that whatever you're dealing with came in on the seed that you were using. I would also probably suggest, just out of an abundance of caution, to either not grow alliums this winter or simply to find a different location to grow them altogether. Then take the season to work the soil, growing unrelated crops, managing any potential drainage issues you might have, and really working on the soil's health. Perhaps a round of mustard cover crops would be helpful as well, just to kind of shore up a little bit of that, whatever the fungi might be. Make sure you are not keeping any of the old garlic or alliums around, or that you are not curing them in the same location where the infected garlic were stored. Make sure those storage and curing areas get as cleaned up and sanitized as much as they can. Crop rotation is definitely going to come in handy here, especially if you're on a larger scale, though. As you said, it's for you, it's in a smaller garden, so you may not be getting the benefits so much from crop rotation, but I still think it will be wildly important. For me, no alliums should be grown in those areas where they are rotting in the ground for at least a year. I might even go a little bit longer than that. And like I said, slip a good mustardy cover crop or two in there and into the mix. That may be helpful. This is one of those situations I think about with that dogma thing that yes, healthy soil will do a lot of the pathogen work for you, but sometimes you live in a wet climate with difficult soils and the pathogen just takes hold and you have to rotate the crop out of there for a while. Like for instance, I'm starting to run into an issue that healthy soil has not been able to so much help me with, and that's harlequin beetles on our brassicas. They've really established themselves well on the farm at this point that I think growing most brassicas next year is kind of out of the picture until I can get them in check. Part of the problem is my love of sweet alyssum, I think, if I'm being honest. It just harbors them and keeps them breeding, so I may have to have an affair with a different flower next year, maybe something low growing and umbellifery for under and around my tomatoes. Taking recommendations here, listeners. Let me know what you think. Anyway, I know that's not super helpful or maybe even super hopeful, but these diseases can be brought back into check. It just takes some thoughtful dedication and maybe just taking some stuff out of production for a little while, especially when you're on small acreage. It's a little easier when you can move them pretty far away, but when you're in a small space and you have just the same curing spaces, a lot of transfers are going to happen. Let us know, listeners, what your experiences are with molds and alliums in the Northwest, which I admit is a rather specific request. But in the meantime, we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some composting stuff I learned that I think will benefit everybody. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just fun to talk about. We'll find out. Be right back.
Been having some issues with my earthways seeder. It was just clogging up. So I took it apart, and this is what we found. Ta-da! Spiderweb nest. Spider nest. Spider nest? Spider nest. Big old spider nest in there.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
All right, so last Thursday, I attended the Kentucky Composting Conference in Lexington, and I had a really great time. In fact, there were some composting legends there, like Dr. Bob Rink and Jean Bonatal, who I always love to hear from. I'd love to see that conference get really big next year because it just offers so much in the way of commercial composting information and insight directly from people who have built composting operations themselves, studied them, or are currently trying to get a composting operation going. The number of hurdles for starting a composting operation feels almost endless. To start a composting facility, sites not only have to be fitted with the right amount of slope, right, for drainage, a place, to capture runoff, also access from big trucks and more, but also to be in a place where they're not going to, cause current or future problems with neighbors. Dr. Rink did a whole talk on site selection, and there are a lot of nuances to it. I think one of the more interesting things about composting versus other forms of agriculture is just how concerned people, just regular citizens, are with the smells that may be emitted from a compost operation versus the smells that are definitely emitted from, like even small amounts of confined livestock production. There is a bizarre double standard there where people will tolerate the anaerobic smell of a confined cattle or chicken or pig operation to an extent that they will not tolerate the smell of a composting operation, which I would argue is significantly more pleasant. And I think I've even told the story of the UPS driver who used to tell us on our old farm they would love driving up onto our ridge where we used to live because the way it smelled. The big part of that was the fresh compost pile we always had right by the road. But anyway, one thing I think the composting world could benefit from, and maybe this is something I can talk to Jane Murner about one day, is a per acre gross revenue goal for the average composting operation. Like in intensive market gardening, the low end is like we try to make $25,000 per acre for broad acreage, vegetable production, or on the high end, it's like $100,000 an acre, and that's like gross revenue. That latter number being a big goal, but it's achievable for gross revenue for how much money you can bring in. Or for like sweet corn, it's like $10,000 gross revenue per acre. I feel like the composting operations just need a baseline gross revenue goal and or range for wannabe composting operations to regard in terms of planning and business plan and all that stuff. Something to shoot for that has numbers behind it that's achievable based on what you're selling and those sorts of things. I don't know that such a number is out there, though I could be wrong, and let me know if you know one. That said, Jean Bonatal mentioned in one of the panel discussions that there was an economic study of composting operations, and within a specific set of parameters, composters were on average in the black by year 2, which kind of blew my mind, to be honest. That's really fast paced to start making money for any small business, and it seems that a big part of that is tipping fees. In other words, if you have a site where trucks can drop materials, you can immediately start charging and earning money well before you've produced a product. I guess the closest thing we have to that in vegetable farming is a CSA, but that's more like a loan you take out that has to be repaid in veggies than something that people just give you money to take off their hands. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more about this idea tomorrow. But anyway, another thing I took away is just how complicated and convoluted the permitting situations can get with some of it, like the water quality plan, for instance, needing to come through the NRCS, but a lot of the rest of it, the certification and stuff, needing to come through the waste management departments. In fact, those are often who you're going to go to for your licenses, because composting in most areas is considered waste management, not agriculture. One slide that I thought was really interesting that Dr. Rink shared, and I'll put it on the screen here, and it says it's from Matt Collins and Tim O'Neill's list, so shouts to whoever those folks are, was about the sites most likely to be built, and it had some good bullet points that I think are really helpful for commercial composters to consider. For listeners, in terms of commercial composting places most likely to get built, the list is expanding/improving existing facilities, so taking a facility that's already there and expanding on it, sites permitted to handle similar materials already, like wastewater treatment plants, landfills, transfer stations, etc. Those could be places to build composting operations. Certain ag lands, so maybe right where those stinky farms are, help them to manage that manure. Plus, remote industrially zoned land could also be an option for building a composting site. The note at the bottom of that screen, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that the note at the bottom says the composting is commonly an adjunct to another business, and I like that. It's treating waste not like waste, but like opportunity, an opportunity that could be an entire business for the right person. A lot of wasteful industries don't have the time or savvy to do a composting operation, but might appreciate the implementation of one. So anyway, I have more to say about that, what I learned on all that tomorrow, because it did spark a little business idea for me. But let me know any thoughts that sparks for you, or any experience you all have in starting a composting operation or otherwise. Big shouts to Keith and the Kentucky Composting Council for all their work getting that together. I hope to see it continue to grow, and it's very, very fun. We'll hopefully do it again next year. Otherwise, we're going to take a long break, like overnight, and call it a Monday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and/or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeden for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also for the hoodie that Mike gave me, this Racing Louisville hoodie. Shouts to that. I don't have any lavender hoodies, or I didn't until this weekend. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of October, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Bill Hawkeye, Tim, that's an easy one, nailed it. Lynn and Cephas Seol Torquil. I'm sorry if I didn't nail that one exactly. I think I came close. Seol does look like an anagram of soil, though, so I nailed that one, I think. All right, so this week's story, we are following the life and times of a man named Roger. Raj, for short. And by short, I guess I just mean, minus one letter and minus one syllable. But anyway, Raj was a dancer. That's all he did. He taught dance, swing specifically during the afternoons and early evenings, and then in the late evenings and on the weekends, he, danced. This had pretty much been all Raj ever knew. His dad played trombone in a swing band growing up, so he'd been around it his entire life, and he just fell in love with the culture and specifically with the dance itself. So much so that he'd made a life and living out of it. He was in competitions, he taught it, all the things. But one day, driving home, Raj was hit by a car. The driver wasn't drunk, but they were checking Facebook, so beyond being infuriating, that's neither here nor there. Just that when Raj woke up, he was in a hospital where his legs were not. Where his legs were, that was a different question. What happens next is for tomorrow on The Swing. That works. All right. Thanks for watching and/or listening. We'll see you then. Bye.